Well, good morning. It's a very warm day here in West Berkshire in the UK, and I'm very grateful for you joining. It probably hot where you are if you're joining from UK or Europe. Today, I want to talk about trust and websites, and I think this is a growing revelation for me as a marketer in a world of AI acceleration, augmentation, automation, for good or ill. Trust is a very, very important commodity. So, what do trusted B2B websites do that others don't? Where am I coming from? 25 years of experience. Me and my colleagues working on many brand strategy, website, copywriting, and HubSpot projects, and coming from what I would characterize as a liberal, humanist, progressive stance. We're a B Corp and investors in people, and that human element I think is quite important in thinking about trust. And I just want you to sort of snapshot this screen in your head in the context of some of the things I'm going to talk about, because I'm going to revisit it at the end in the context of this talk. If any of this resonates with you, you can email me. I would be delighted to have a chat, ask me questions, share your thoughts, give me feedback. You can book a free no BS marketing strategy session with me, and it will be I hope, an epiphany inducing conversation. And we can start with websites if you like, but I can also talk about other things. So we can discuss other things that relate to marketing, or indeed nature of truth and justice and trust and things like that. Okay, so here's the agenda. Let's get right into it. The reality today is that most B2B buying journeys begin and go a long way down the road without any direct human contact, increasingly mediated by AI research, large language models, chat, AI mode on Google search. But people are ready, willing, able, and want to do their research, their exploration, without talking to vendors until quite a late stage. Think about this in your own experience when you've been trying to buy B2B services, or when you've been trying to buy a new car or TV or anything like that. How do you buy? You tend not these days to go straight to a phone call with a vendor until you are ready to buy. So before anyone is filling in a form on your website, which for most B2B websites is still the main lead capture function, and by the way, probably the poorest converting lead capture option, before anyone fills in a form to start a sales conversation, they are asking themselves when they visit your website, can I trust them? And what does that mean? It means, do these people understand our problem, our business, our sector? Do they work with companies like ours? Are their claims believable? In other words, can I trust that they're going to do what they say they're going to do? Does it feel like a trustworthy, a serious business? Would I feel comfortable recommending this business to my colleagues, to the buying committee, or whoever's making a decision? The more money you're expecting somebody to spend, the higher these hurdles are. So typically B2B tech companies, which is our sort of broad market, typically selling things that require educational hand selling over an extended buying cycle. So it's not just one website visit to buy a thing, click to buy. It's multiple website visits from multiple stakeholders and decision makers looking for multiple answers to different things. And 6sense, who've done research into this, found that 70% of that buying process happens before they talk to anybody. And a 2024 study, which probably it needs to be updated in the light of AI, finds that about 81%, so 4 out of 5, have selected a preferred vendor before they even speak to sales. Okay. Yeah. So your website has to carry quite a lot of work. So let's explore how that judgment, that trust building happens. It is writing checks that your business has to cash for trust. You have to answer these questions provably and demonstrably. This is why very often companies that not overly niche but who specialize and segment do better than companies that make very general claims. For example, we've done a lot of work over the years with IT service providers, and the ones that say things like, we just do IT for dentists practice, or we just do IT for restaurants, tend to do better than, we do modern workplace and IT security for anybody who knocks on our door. It's a very generic service offering that every MSP will have on their website versus, we actually service 3/4 of the UK's dentist practices. We know dentistry inside out. You can completely trust when you come to us that we're going to know how to make IT work for your surgery, for your practice. That's a very compelling proposition. There are other positioning and defensible sort of differentiations, but that kind of trust, that kind of confidence is really important. Websites will say things like, we're a trusted partner, we are industry leading, and the biggest signal in the last 6 to 12 months is AI. And just because you've got a sort of slapped on a Claude API call to your otherwise generic or non-AI product doesn't make you an AI company. These sorts of claims need really careful substantiation. So does your website actually deliver that substantiation? Only when the proof points are stronger than the claim. So phrases like trusted by leading businesses, proven results, industry leading experience, end-to-end service, best in class, award-winning, they may all be true, but until you can actually verify them, what is a leading business? What results have you delivered? How consistently do you deliver them? Who decides that you're industry leading? What is unique about your approach? You have to work quite hard to get this stuff right and substantiate it. So there's a huge difference between industry leading expertise and we have completed 42 migrations for regulated financial services businesses, for example. This is the challenge that you have, I think. And if you look at good websites, they are offering trusted websites when you are choosing software products or services, the ones that have case studies and examples and diagrams. And sometimes that truth can be, or that trust can be established by showing a bit of your methodology or using what we call MacGuffins, so trademarked service descriptions that say, we have this methodology, and if you click here, you can find out more about it. But that's also a proof point. Here's another thing that's really important to understand when you're reviewing your typically homepage, product pages, about us pages, which is where these sorts of trust signals land. Human beings are wired for, among many things, but are wired for two things. One is credulity. Look at the number of people who believe extraordinary conspiracy theories and sort of random stuff about the universe. Moon landings were faked, that kind of thing. And extraordinary cynicism. And I suspect the credulity arises from the cynicism. It's unwillingness to take received wisdom and accept it, unwillingness to believe claims of pretty much everybody these days, but politicians and so-called experts, or even actual experts. And that cynicism is reinforced by their experience online. And they look at a lot of websites, they do doom scrolling a lot of stuff, and they know that their X feed, their Facebook feed, is polluted with random stuff, slop. noise, untruths. They assume that people are lying to them all the time, and they applying this cynicism to what they're seeing online. And I'm afraid that has the blast radius of that corruption of a kind of common truth or common ground is your website. They come to your website with the same level of cynicism. And here's an important further point. Carl Sagan once said, extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof, more words to that effect. And you on your website, whatever you are selling, are making an extraordinary claim, a claim of successful change and transformation, growth and improvement. And so you've got a burden of proof that is higher, perhaps, and a cynical audience who, if we can translate that into, for example, IT, B2B marketing, every CIO for the last 20 years and probably throughout history has been bombarded daily by vendors saying, this thing that we're selling has an extraordinary ROI and massively reduces your total cost of ownership and makes you much more efficient, so you can liberate resources, budget and capacity for other more important projects, right? That is the basic story of every CIO targeted message through the history of IT marketing. Goodness knows I've probably written quite a lot of it over the years for Microsoft and HP and people like that. Those are extraordinary claims, and people heard them a lot. So when you look at your website, when you are thinking about what you say, it's almost worth printing out your homepage and sort of marking it up, so you're looking at it and engaging with it in a different format, different sort of layout, different physical media. Look for those claims and underline them, every claim you make, and go, is this really evidenced? Have we got some data to support it? Should we replace this claim with something else? Or is this claim just generic table stakes, and are we just looking like every other provider by saying what every other provider says? We know our technology, we're easy to work with, we've got good vendor relationships, would be the three common claims for IT service providers, for example. How do we differentiate? Okay. It's better not to make a claim than to make an unanswered, unsubstantiated claim. So, for example, generic case studies that don't have details, that don't tell the full story, or generic case studies that have, grandiose claims of 1,000% ROI, but don't tell you how they delivered it. Having written probably 400 or 500 case studies in my life, the pressure from clients to include extraordinarily inflated ROI numbers is, you would not believe. Generic service descriptions, no explanation or hint at the delivery process behind what you're doing, no examples of the kinds of things that you've done. So, for example, on Articulate, yes, we have product and service pages, but what we're always trying to do is link to detailed blog posts or white papers about how we do that thing and what the ROI of that thing is, and here are some case studies about that thing, so that the product page is really a lens onto the public information that we provide about how we work. I think the days of writing a product page and just going, if we just list all our features and products, benefits, people will automatically buy it, I think are largely over. It's a whole other conversation I can get into. I did a webinar last year or earlier this year about widening the mid-funnel, and I think that's a really interesting sort of exploration of product pages versus sort of background knowledge and information that you share. But back to trust and credibility. It's not the requirement that you answer and substantiate every claim or answer every question, although FAQs on pages seem to help with AI discovery. The important thing is to answer and identify the questions that people at the end of that 70-80% journey are most likely to be asking, and answer them credibly, right? So get to that evidence, assume somebody is at that stage of their journey, and make sure that they are getting the information they need. There is also a challenge and an opportunity to convey trust very clearly and quickly on a website. And this is important because people make judgments about websites, website pages extraordinarily quickly. There was Microsoft research a few years ago that said that people are able to make a heuristic sort of intuitive judgment about whether a page is credible or not, whether it answers their questions or not, in a fraction of a second. Norman Nielsen Group finds that 4 out of 5 people, 79%, scan pages, so they're not reading every word. So your headlines and your your banner headlines, they need to tell the story, because that's probably what most of the people are reading on the site. Only a tiny fraction read every single word on a page, and typically when they do, they're really at the end of that journey looking for very specific questions. So you're looking for things like recognizable customer names, specific results, numbers, dates, data points, certifications and accreditations that are tangible and meaningful. You're looking for pictures of real people. You're looking for evidence of real companies. You're looking for recent and up-to-date content. You're looking for a site that is hasn't been left fallow for a couple of years. Looking for detailed product or service information, or how we do it, that sort of thing. Just saying you have that stuff isn't enough. You can't actually have to manifest it in a way that my old history tutor at Oxford used to say, Matthew, do try putting 1 or 2 dates into your essays. I used to go off on these very philosophical sort of analyses. Anyway, so put a few dates on your pages. Clearer copy can help. Getting to the point quicker and in a more concise way and with sharper language is something we've talked about. I've talked about a lot on these webinars over the last year. There are ways and methods for doing it. My webinar last week probably is a good place to start, as is Norman Nielsen Group's How People Read Online. Avoiding hyped language like transformational, future-ready, strategic, value-led, end-to-end, integrated, and as I said, almost anything with sort of AI lipstick on the pig. Those can be very corrosive at worst and sort of gloss over, skim through, generic at best. It is a challenge to write that stuff, because the people inside an organization, when we talk to clients, are experts in what they do. They spend all their time thinking about it, all their time working on the product, and when they think about the market, they tend to be looking at what competitors are saying and what they're doing. So they live in this sort of very product service focused bubble, and they think that any attempt to clearly communicate that using customer language, focusing on customer benefits and outcomes, they think it's trivializing. They think it's trivializing, and this is the challenge that we have as marketers and copywriters, is to say, no, it's clarifying, communicating, distilling. It's the difference between beer and whiskey. It's not the difference between beer and lemonade, right? So this is a challenge. It's not dumbing down, it's sharpening up. But it has to be done carefully. And there's now a new layer of waffle and verbiage and gloss because people run copy through AI, large language models. And while they are getting very good at doing good to very good copy, they aren't so good yet at specific, sharp copywriting. And if you have a real human being copywriting or reviewing or editing anything, it's got to be the key pages on your website. That's probably the last stuff you want to just hand over to AI and kind of go, it's good enough. And I think there's a real, don't get me wrong, I'm an AI enthusiast. We embrace AI at Articulate. It's not that we're Luddites about it, but we want to use it wisely. We want our hands on the wheel. It's very easy to fall into what I call the AI Dunning-Kruger effect, where it looks okay, right? It has this sort of, it looks like it's well written, and everything that AI presents, or not all, everything, much of what AI presents, it presents with enormous confidence, right? So it looks like, it's problem solved. That's my homepage copy. So this, if you take one thing away from this webinar with respect to AI, is apply these challenges to the output of AI copy, right? It's not quite garbage in, garbage out, but your assumptions and preferences and so on in AI's sort of super confident, slightly genericized, fluffy version out, and you've got to guard against that. By the way, there are ways to guard against it and still use AI. And call me afterwards and I'll talk about that. The more specific the claims the more specific you can be with your claims, the better. Who, what, where, why, how. Rudyard Kipling's 5 Serving Men, always a good place to start. If you haven't heard that, Rudyard Kipling wrote a poem, and I think it goes a bit like this. I kept 5 serving men, they served me well and true. Their names were what and where and why and how and who. I get garbled it because it's from memory, but look it up. It's kind of fun. Okay. Numbers have a sort of truthiness of their own. They anchor the eye nicely. We think that digits are better than words, and this is our style guide talks a lot about spelling numbers out up to 10 and things like that. But for scanning and website copy, an actual number, 180 B2B websites is better than we've helped hundreds. It is when the eye is scanning along a page, and the eye doesn't read in a continuous linear motion, it sort of hops like this. They're called saccades. A number is a very clear anchor point. And typically, if you did an eye tracking study on, we have helped 180 plus B2B companies, almost all of the eye tracking will land on 180. So it's a very powerful sort of look at this. And it has that truthiness, that evidential value. If you then strategize to pull out the best copy and the best proof points onto the high value pages and the high traffic pages, you can then link to other things. So for example, a really nice customer quote alongside, we are excellent at onboarding. You'll get up and running quickly. And then there's a quote showing somebody saying, and they helped us do that. Or our product generates, a tremendous ROI. And here's a stat that says, quote or from a case study or something like that. Reduce the distance between the claim, the promise, and the proof. And that's a design challenge, and it's a curation challenge. One of the difficulties that we see, and we're victims to it as well, is customer quotes that are, paragraph or long sentence long, look great on a page, but when you drop them into a home page, you almost want the 2, 3, 4 word version of it. So that kind of condensation, concision helps. Okay. It's very easy to fall into this is for everybody. Anyone who might want to buy it can buy it, but the more specific you are, the more likely you are to build the trust with the people who are most likely to buy from you, right? So people are averse to and good at detecting ambiguity, and that starts with, weasel words, and it goes all the way up to sort of this service is for everybody and how that lands. So talk about who. Also interesting to talk about who it's not for, and sometimes you can do that with pricing, sometimes you can do that with client logos, right? So if you have, this service starts at X, it's very clear. And I think that a lot of SaaS products particularly fail because they don't want to talk about pricing, and therefore they get a lot of, and we have a client who does data integration and automation software, and they are in the same universe as Zapier, which has a free tier and a 20 quid a month tier, and Clover is tens of thousands of dollars for typical customers. And the moment they put a price range up on the website, the people who are looking for free or low cost or not enterprise class and all the benefits that come with Clover, they go away. And actually sending them away is actually quite helpful, because it's quite expensive to serve those customers if they have to call and book a meeting with a salesperson and talk for half an hour, only to find, oh, I didn't realize it cost that much. Right. So making it clear about what you want them to do next is helpful. So I think widening the mid-funnel means surfacing more information for people who are in the buying stage. They're looking for terms and conditions, they're looking for deployment advice, they're looking for, if it's software, for example, they're looking for information about IT security and compliance and governance so that they can make sure that they can answer those questions. They're looking at contract terms and sovereignty and things like that. So answer those questions in a way that is findable and accessible, as well as making the outcome claims. The more you can make this information visible and put a human face on it, or allow them to experience it. So if you can offer self-service demos, you offer video case studies, you can offer webinars where there's somebody talking live. Hello, thank you for joining. Anything like that can give people an experience of working with the company, an experience of what the buying process might be once they do raise their hand. Blair Enns, who's very interesting in my world of marketing, expert consultancy businesses, he says that the sale is the sample. In other words, the experience somebody has as they go through the marketing and sales funnel should reflect the best of what the engagement will be like. So, you're watching this video of me talking. If you book a marketing strategy session, it'll be me delivering it, and me and my colleagues are on the other side of the sales process. There's no sort of differentiation between that. You just get a different sort of flavor or lens on the articulate experience as you go through that journey. And that's something we're trying very hard to embody at the moment. Okay, I'm conscious of time and I am wittering on. So I will skip to some recommendations that will help you do this. So I think the first recommendation is go and look at the core pages of your website. Go and audit them, starting with the homepage, and ask yourself these questions that we've been discussing so far. You can ask Claude to do that for you, and I mean it's a sort of level 1 AI skill, but asking Claude to act as a give potential buyer and say what questions they're asking or what credibility gaps, and then ask Claude to act as a expert marketing consultant and say what proofs are unsubstantiated or generic. It can give you some answers. It can at least give you a semi-objective outsider view of something. You can also, as I said, print something out and mark it up yourself. That's always a useful exercise. Fix the highest value payoff things first. Things that you can change with copy on the website is usually the easiest thing to change before you get into redesigning, re-architecting, information architecture, rewriting tens of thousands of words, re-platforming, rebranding, all of which, by the way, we can help with, and in many cases is the right long-term answer, but there's some short-term quick wins and benefits. You can go today and you can replace a vague headline with a specific one. You can add proof to one claim on your website. You can rewrite a generic testimonial with more substantial evidence. You can clarify or surface some part of your process. You can put on your contact page, when you fill in this form, this is what happens next. These are quick wins. They do not take hours and hours and hours to do, but it will start to train that muscle that builds proof and trust on the website. So let's circle back to the ongoing continuous work in progress, which is Articulate's positioning. We have helped 180. There's a strong proof point there. companies design and build difference engines. There's a MacGuffin. There's a button on this page that says go read this to find out what a difference engine is and how it works. So we're not expecting you to know what that is, but we are making the claim that it's about long-term marketing success, and probably that's the wooliest claim on this page, but we're trying to substantiate and evidence it by the number of brand strategy projects, the amount of copy, the number of websites we've built, and the number of HubSpot consultancy projects. And on our homepage above this, just the next thing on the scroll is here are some of the client logos that we've done it for. And also this page has 2 accreditations, which we're very proud of and which are externally audited, so they're not us marking our own exam papers, and they talk a little bit to our positioning and our core beliefs, as I said, sort of progressive humanistic core beliefs. Interestingly, on the website above the scroll, that is continuously evolving under scrutiny and pressure at the moment, and we're trying to move away from we do X, Y, and Z, websites, branding, whatever, to we deliver these outcomes, but we're grappling with this trust, claim, proof dilemma challenge, because it's very easy to say, well, we deliver more leads, but how many, what? And we don't want to fall into the trap that I saw on another website that I otherwise admire quite a lot, for a company that does podcasting for clients. And they make a claim about growth. So their headline is, we guarantee is a strong word, 10% month-on-month growth. You go, wow, okay, I'll sign up for that. And there's a little asterisk, and you scroll down to the bottom of the page, and there's a little footnote that says, we don't mean revenue growth or lead growth or business growth. What we mean is audience growth. Okay, so month 1 you might have 10 listeners, and month 2 you might have 11 listeners, and month 3 you might have 13 listeners, and month 4 you might have, and so on. And they're fulfilling their guarantee, but it's probably not that meaningful. And that small print trust destroying thing is the thing that we are desperately trying to avoid, and yet also make these claims. So we're grappling with this for Articulate as well. You message me, set up a call. I'm happy to tell you a little bit more about what we're doing and what we're thinking about that, if you like. Okay, so we have 105 webinars in the library. We're now ramping up to doing weekly webinars, starting with next week, how we are using webinars to engage with contacts and turn them into leads and customers. And then we're going to sort of talk about the secret sauce. I say it's next week, it's actually in a couple of weeks, but there's a whole bunch of webinars in the pipeline and several that you can book up now, and there's the whole library on the site. Do drop me an email, book up a meeting if you're watching this. Love to hear from you. And that brings us to the end of this morning's webinar. Thank you very much for attending.